Hello and welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Explore our playlist for more captivating novels, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 41, Stop It, You Are No Match for Natsuki. Shocked, looking at her childhood companion, Rukia was completely dumbfounded. Although she had long been prepared for the coming of the Soul Society, she never expected that it would come so soon. How did you come here? Anyone can come. Why is it Aburai Renji, a childhood friend? Aburai Renji heard the questioning, jumped off the telephone pole, landed in front of the two, and asked. Why am I here? Rukia, shouldn't you explain your relationship with this human being around you? Having said that, an unknown fire rose in Aburai Renji's heart. I'm so worried about you, but you're here making love to a human. Hearing this sentence, Rukia looked at Natsuki subconsciously. Panic was written in those deep purple eyes. But the words are not finished yet. Natsuki suddenly took her right hand and said softly. Don't worry, I'm with you. Watching this scene, Aburai Renji's expression became more and more icy, especially staring at the small movements of the two. A flash of pain flashed in his heart. After comforting Rukia, Natsuki looked at Aburai Renji again, and said quietly. Since you know each other, let me introduce myself. My name is Natsuki, I'm a student in Class 3, 1st grade, Karakura Daiichi High School. As you can see, I'm human. Rescued Rukia, who was seriously injured 3 months ago. While she was recuperating, I helped purify the void within Karakura Town, and she taught me how to use spiritual power. Natsuki's voice was flat, as if he didn't pay attention to Aburai Renji in front of him. But listening to this plain voice, the latter's complexion became worse and worse, and finally even interrupted the conversation directly. Teach you how to use spiritual power. It's all an excuse, it's just an excuse to get involved in being Shinigami. Rukia. Furious, Aburai Renji looked at Natsuki with gritted teeth. At first, when he learned that Rukia was in love with humans in this world, he thought it was just an intelligence error. But when he saw the two walking side by side, he pointed to the alley and said the kind of words that made people think. Where he didn't understand, it wasn't because the information was wrong, it was just that he didn't want to believe it. Thinking of this, Aburai Renji looked at Rukia. Rukia, in fact, you didn't pay attention to this human kid at all, you just used him to complete the task, right? Last sentence. He almost said it in a begging tone. As long as Rukia admits this sentence, with the strength of the Kuchiki family, she will definitely be able to keep her, right? After a moment of silence. Sorry, Renji. Rukia turned her head away, not daring to meet Renji's begging gaze. How could she not know that if she accepted what Renji said, she would be able to avoid this crisis? But, the warmth in the palm of your hand. The heart beats uncontrollably. This feeling from the heart made her unable to deceive, and she did not want to deceive herself. Rukia, you. At this moment, Aburai Renji's eyes were somewhat desperate. Obviously, as long as you admit what he said, everything will be fine. Why is it like this? In despair, out of the corner of his eye, Natsuki looked aside. It's you, the human being, Rukia. At this moment, Aburai Renji was like a crazy wild dog, with a gnawing light in his eyes. But also this look. What made him aware? His pupils slowly widened. You actually have the power of Shinigami on your body. It's impossible, could it be? A more terrifying thought emerged in his mind, making his mind go blank. Fornicating humans. It's a felony in the Soul Society itself. If you add the power of Shinigami to humans without permission. Aburai Renji couldn't imagine what kind of ending Rukia would meet after going back with him. Die. Or is it worse than death? Gradually, Aburai Renji's face turned pale. No, there is one last way out. As long as this human being in front of him is dealt with, all the faults will disappear. The moment this thought popped up, his expression was icy cold like never before. Rukia, step back. After saying that, he pulled out the Zanpakuto from his waist. Wait, Renji. Rukia realized something, and hurriedly said. But it was too late. Aburai Renji ignored Rukia and went straight to Natsuki. However, facing the oncoming Zanpakuto, Natsuki made a move. No, just a single index finger. He stretched out his right index finger to block himself. Ding! Zanpakuto cut on the index finger. The attack that was intended to be won was actually blocked. Abarai Renji's eyes widened, looking at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Finger. No, it's impossible. Although I didn't use all my strength just now. But it's not enough to be attacked by a mere human with a finger. At the same time, Rukia finally had a chance to say what she hadn't finished speaking. Renji, stop. You are not Natsuki's match. Chapter 42. As a human being, you actually have a captain-level Reiatsu. A finger. Impossible, there is definitely a problem. Natsuki is stronger than himself. Abarai Renji didn't believe it at all. It's just a human being, how can it be stronger than myself as a Shinigami? Question. Natsuki suddenly laughed. But this smile makes Abarai Renji very upset. My finger stops here, you can try it casually to see if I used other methods. It was supposed to be just a try. Take a look at the defense strengthening effect of Captain Reiatsu. But he didn't expect the effect to be outstanding. Facing Abarai Renji's knife, he didn't waver in the slightest, which aroused Natsuki's interest. Simply let him continue the test for himself. Natsuki, what are you doing? Rukia was puzzled. Little devil, what do you mean? Are you looking down on me? Abarai Renji was furious, grabbing Natsuki's collar with one hand and shouting angrily. Watch the reaction of the two. Natsuki didn't panic at all, as if he wasn't the one who got caught by the collar. Didn't you say that I used a small trick to block your attack? Then you can try again to see if I used a small trick. UB*************D. Abarai Renji stared, is such a thing important? But seeing the other party's confident appearance, he was a little uncertain. Could it be that he had made a mistake in his judgment? Quite a while. Abarai Renji let go of Natsuki's collar. Are you really going to make me try again? I won't hold back. Don't worry, you can't hurt me anyway. Natsuki nodded indifferently. But what he said made Abarai Renji's forehead veins pop. He understood. This kid doesn't know anything else, but his verbal skill is not bad. But this is an opportunity to confirm the opponent's strength. The aura of the two saber glows when they walked out of the world today seems to be somewhat similar to this kid. If this is the case, you should try it out for the captain first. If there is a problem, there is still a chance to remedy it. Abarai Renji calmed down and became serious again. Boy, although I don't know what you're thinking, I won't show mercy like I did just now. After all, don't give Natsuki and Rukia a chance to react. Abarai Renji raised his Zanpakuto again, and slashed at Natsuki's fingers with the knife in both hands. Natsuki! Rukia exclaimed subconsciously. She knew that Natsuki was powerful, but she was subconsciously worried about him. See. With a ding sound, Abarai Renji's all-out slash. He was still easily blocked as before, without even a slight movement. Impossible, this is a knife with all my strength. Seeing this scene, Abarai Renji was stunned, and exclaimed subconsciously. How about it, do you see why I blocked your attack? If not, I can let you try again. Natsuki waggled his fingers. Ask Abarai Renji with a good heart. As everyone knows, this appearance seems to be mocking himself in the eyes of the other party. Abarai Renji was completely furious. He was teased by a human twice in a row. He couldn't lose face. ****, I don't believe I can't hurt you. Meet my Zanpakuto, roar, Zabumeru. Accompanied by loud shouts. Abarai Renji wiped Zanpakuto with one hand. Immediately, the Zanpakuto in his hand changed its appearance. How? Haven't you seen it before? This is the liberation of Zanpakuto, a technique that only our regular Shinigami can master. Abarai Renji said proudly. But the sound just fell. Rukia at the side said something silently. Natsuki also holds Shikai, and it only took about half a month from knowing it to releasing it. Impossible, absolutely impossible. After hearing this, Abarai Renji retorted subconsciously. But when he wanted to continue to say something, he suddenly saw Rukia's serious expression, and fell silent immediately. As a partner who grew up, what he didn't know was that Rukia was serious with this look. So, that is to say, you kid really mastered Shikai. Abarai Renji looked at Natsuki in shock. It's just a human being, but he managed to master Shikai. And the most important thing is that it only took about half a month from awareness to liberation. And at this moment, facing the shock of Abarai Renji, Natsuki looked at Rukia helplessly. He didn't expect his Shikai to be exposed like this. I will Shikai just say that. I'm just talking fast, and I don't want Renji to talk like you're clueless. Rukia will also react to this. This time I directly exposed Natsuki's cards, and lowered my head in self-blame. However, look at her like this. Natsuki put his hand on the top of Rukia's head. She caressed her a few times in a surprised look, and said with a smile at the same time. It's just Shikai, don't take it too seriously, and with my strength, does it matter if I'm exposed or not? Natsuki is obviously smiling, but the words that came out of his mouth were so hurtful. Abarai Renji couldn't help showing a creepy smile on his face, and said in a low voice. Don't think that you are very powerful because you have mastered the liberation. Let me tell you, the Battle of Shinigami is basically the Battle of Reiatsu. I'm the vice captain of the 6th division, but Reiatsu's strength is. But half the story. He suddenly stopped, his eyes widened in disbelief. See, Natsuki in front of him. Listening to Reiatsu's strong words, he chuckled. No words, just silently released Reiatsu, who just broke through the captain level today. Time. A faint blue beam of Reiatsu light. Exploding from Natsuki's body, it went straight to the sky. With the eruption of this Reiatsu, there was a strong wind around, and the lingering wind blade left traces on the ground, and was finally crushed by this Reiatsu. Feel this Reiatsu. Abarai Renji was completely dumbfounded, and said in a daze. As a human being, you have a captain-level Reiatsu, that's impossible. Chapter 43, Is this your choice, Rukia Kuchiki? Impossible. How do you have Reiatsu at captain level? The majestic Reiatsu that erupted from Natsuki made Abarai Renji completely dumbfounded. What's going on today? He said that Zanpakuto Shikai is a normal Shinigami ability. In the blink of an eye, Rukia said that Natsuki had also mastered Shikai. He also said that the battle between Shinigami is actually a battle between Reiatsu, and he is going to show his Reiatsu at the vice-captain level. Unexpectedly, this human named Natsuki, turning around, Reiatsu burst out at the captain level. Come on, it all looks like it's aimed at him. Abarai Renji. Natsuki, your Reiatsu has reached the captain level. Rukia, also looking at Natsuki in disbelief. If you want to say who is most familiar with Natsuki, of course it is her who lived together for several months. But she, who lived together for several months, didn't even know when Chu Shashu broke through to the captain level Reiatsu. How long has it been? 3 months, no, maybe even shorter. Natsuki, you have raised Reiatsu to the captain's rank in such a short time, it's incredible. This moment, she doesn't even care about her best friend Renji. There are no more than a dozen Shinigami in the Soul Society who have captain-level Reiatsu. With Natsuki's current strength, you can even take on the role of captain of the Soul Society. And at this moment, Rukia doesn't know. What I said made my friends even more confused. Abarai Renji couldn't help but asked Rukia loudly. 3 months or less, hey Rukia, what the hell does that mean? That's what I said. Rukia took a deep breath and relieved the previous excitement before explaining again. Natsuki was practiced after I came to this world. It's only been 3 months since the day I came to this world. That said, he mastered Zanpakuto's Shikai and raised Reiatsu to captain rank in just 3 months. 3 months. Abarai Renji's eyes froze instantly. In just 3 months, he went from 0 practice to captain level strength. This kind of talent is simply unheard of. It took decades. How can I feel so embarrassed for myself who has only been promoted to the level of vice captain? Is this me qualified to compete for Rukia with a genius like Natsuki? Abarai Renji was completely confused. He didn't understand, since there will be Natsuki in the future, why did he let himself meet Rukia back then? Is it possible, just to let myself work hard for decades? Finally, the moment he saw hope, he threw it on the ground so hard that it was smashed into pieces. This moment, Abarai Renji's long red hair. It seems that they all feel the loneliness of the master, and become overshadowed. Renji. Rukia couldn't bear it. She has always regarded Renji as a close friend, and never thought of going further. Although I have vaguely known the other party's thoughts these years, but because of the affection between friends, I have never picked it up. But to this extent, Renji will only suffer more if he doesn't point it out directly. Finally, meeting Abarai Renji's expectant eyes, he squeezed Natsuki's hand tightly, and said apologetically. Renji, I'm sorry, I just want to be with Natsuki right now. I see. Abarai Renji closed his eyes in pain. How much he wished that he hadn't received this support task today, even if it was just deceiving himself. However, the voices of the two just fell. An unexpected thing happened. Just behind everyone, another voice suddenly appeared. Is this your choice, Rukia? The voice appeared very suddenly, but it was very cold, like ice, which made people feel chills all over. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Quote. Exclamation mark question mark quote. At the same time as this voice sounded, the complexions of Abarai Renji and Rukia changed, and they subconsciously looked back. See, a icy man in Captain's Houri. Standing at a high point not far from the three of them, he looked down at the three of them. Captain, Byakuya, Big Brother. Abarai Renji and Rukia shout out the identity of the person at the same time. Only Natsuki looked at Byakuya Kuchiki standing on a high place, and frowned slightly. This feeling of looking up at others is a bit uncomfortable. To be frank, when Abarai Renji appeared, Natsuki vaguely sensed a gaze sizing him up. But the owner of this line of sight has a deep hidden ability, and he has not found the other party's position. It seems that, the one who hides in the dark. This is Byakuya Kuchiki, captain of the 6th Division. At the same time, Natsuki is watching Byakuya Kuchiki. Byakuya Kuchiki is also watching Natsuki. Especially when he felt the captain-level Reiatsu without any falsehood, he couldn't help nodding his head slightly. Excellent talent. From zero practice to captain-level strength in 3 months. This kind of talent, even he has never heard of it, makes people have to take it seriously. If in Soul Society, Rukia fell in love with Shinigami of this condition, the Kuchiki family will not only not hinder, but even support to a certain extent. Thinking of this, Byakuya Kuchiki changed his mind slightly. But he still looked at Rukia Kuchiki and asked in a cold voice. This is your choice, Kuchiki. Rukia. Chapter 44, Reiatsu collides, Byakuya loses. Is this your choice? Single quote. Byakuya Kuchiki's voice echoed in Rukia's ears. She didn't know how to answer. If it was Renji, she could express her thoughts generously, but Byakuya brother. But also at this moment, Natsuki took her hand and squeezed it slightly. Relax. A gentle voice suddenly sounded. Relieves Rukia's nervousness while supporting. Boldly speak out what's in your heart. On the first day we met, I said it, everything is mine. Hear this phrase of support. Rukia's expression became firm, and she said seriously. Brother, I am sure of my choice, I want to be by Natsuki's side. Eat together every day, tease each other when you are angry, stay with each other when you are uncomfortable, even go to school together, go to the cinema together. Maybe it's because of the experience of the past few months. When Rukia said these words, the corners of Rukia's mouth unconsciously raised a happy smile. Crimson. This familiar smile made Byakuya Kuchiki slightly distracted. At this moment, it seems that there is a shadow overlapping with Rukia. Rukia, you look exactly like Hibiscus when you smile. The girl who had a particularly gentle smile back then seemed to have the same smile in front of him. But he had sworn oaths at his parents' graves. I will not do anything against the rules again, no matter what happens, I will stick to my principles to the end. I've known you for so long without knowing it. Natsuki gradually realized, did the two of them to so many things? Ask yourself, saying I don't have feelings for Rukia is bullshit. The man is unmarried, the woman is not married, and they have lived under the same roof for so long, and they are of the same age and personality. Only, previously, Natsuki felt that his strength was too low. That's why I deliberately didn't respond to Rukia's feelings. But now it's different, not only Zanpakuto has mastered Shikai, but Reiatsu has reached the rank of captain. Finally, there is a glimmer of self-protection strength. He can also respond to Rukia's feelings in a fair way. Therefore, Listening to Rukia's bold statement that was almost confessed on the spot, Natsuki responded by holding her hand tightly. As everyone knows, Byakuya Kuchiki saw this scene in his eyes. A trace of regret once again appeared on Gyubo's calm face. If you were a Shinigami, maybe you wouldn't have so many worries, Natsuki. Single quote. Thinking like this, he pulled out the Zanpakuto from his waist without hesitation. But even so, he did not forget to use cold words to make it clear. Rukia violated the rules of the Soul Society by choosing you. If I say I want to take Rukia back to stand trial, I think you won't agree to it. If that's the case, a fight is inevitable. Aburai Renji opened his mouth. But thinking of his own identity, he shut his mouth obediently. Brother Byakuya. Rukia looked at Byakuya imploringly. She didn't want her two closest people to fight because of her. Don't worry, just be an uncle to test my strength. Natsuki shook Rukia's little hand and comforted with a light smile. Hearing the straightforward words, Rukia snorted angrily, but didn't say anything, just stepped aside silently. She also knows. The eldest brother wants to take himself back to the Soul Society, and Natsuki wants to prevent the eldest brother from taking himself back. The two have a fundamental conflict. It's not something she can avoid with just a few words. At the same time, the moment Rukia stepped aside, the battle began. Wang, wang. Both Byakuya Kuchiki and Natsuki touched the waist Zanpakuto. But before drawing their swords, both of them unleashed their own momentum. Boom! Reiatsu and Reiatsu collide. It was as if two fast-moving trains had collided. The deafening sound exploded at this moment, stimulating everyone's eardrums. But the next moment, Reiatsu's collision was not over yet, and the ground under their feet could no longer bear this terrifying pressure, and they exploded one after another. The lingering Reiatsu charged in all directions. The ground, concrete, and utility poles all shattered under the sudden blast of icy cold. All of a sudden there was smoke and dust. This blocked the situation of the two of them at this time. Team leader. Natsuki. Aburai Renji and Rukia. Both of them looked over worriedly. For fear that the person I was worried about lost the game in the Reiatsu collision. However, at the moment when the two looked over, their pupils contracted unbelievably, and their expressions were extremely stiff. I saw that the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, and the appearance of the two people reappeared, but the figure of Byakuya Kuchiki took a step back. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. What the hell? In the confrontation just now, Natsuki, who is human, has a small win. Seeing this picture, the expressions of the two people have changed, and they look unbelievable. Natsuki beat Byakuya Kuchiki, the captain of the Shinigami, in the Reiatsu duel. This is not scientific. Chapter 45, Scatter, Senbon Sakura. This Reiatsu. For himself a slight loss in the Reiatsu collision. Byakuya Kuchiki didn't care, because of the limited seal, he could only display 20% of his strength, and it was normal to lose. But what he discovered while testing. This is the biggest gain in this Reiatsu collision. In Natsuki's Reiatsu, there is the Reiatsu contained in the two sword glows this afternoon. That is to say, the original creator of those two sword glows is Natsuki. And at this moment, Natsuki and Byakuya Kuchiki looked at each other 10 meters apart. Suddenly, Byakuya Kuchiki fell to the ground from a high place and exclaimed at Natsuki, "Your Reiatsu is good." Natsuki raised his eyebrows slightly. Instantly pulled out Zanpakuto from his waist, and pressed it in front of him. It was Byakuya Kuchiki who launched an attack the moment the sound fell, and his figure disappeared from the spot in an instant. Ding! Two Zanpakuto cut together. Biting wind pressure erupts from where the Zanpakuto intersect. Boom! The crumbling concrete beneath Natsuki's feet. As if being hit hard again, it instantly collapsed downwards. Natsuki, who was defending against Byakuya Kuchiki's attack, paused slightly, and his body leaned back uncontrollably. Chance. Byakuya Kuchiki is a master of chopping. Immediately seized this opportunity, Zanpakuto, who was pressed in midair, exerted his strength again and pressed towards Natsuki. But, that is at this very moment. Natsuki suddenly smiled, very confidently. Question mark. Crescent Sky Chong 0 distance change. The voice fell. Reiatsu began to gather on his Zanpakuto. This is Natsuki's improved move with the help of Crescent Moon. Compared with condensing Reiatsu, which is the attack method of slashing, this one is to condense the spiritual power on the sword body to strengthen the attack power. Crack. Immediately, Natsuki, who was originally under the pressure. The situation gradually changed, and he continued to exert force in his hands, pressing Zanpakuto to Byakuya Kuchiki bit by bit. This scene, Aburai Renji, who was obediently watching the battle, was dumbfounded. Hey, is this true or false? Captain Kuchiki was crushed by that human kid in the chopping technique. Rukia was prepared. During the period of acquaintance, Natsuki practiced chopping every day. What's more, when she practiced with Natsuki, her scumbag of chopping skills, the highest record was to support 3 moves before being brought down. Is this reasonable? That's right, it makes sense, who let the other party be Natsuki? And at this moment, the confrontation between Natsuki and Byakuya Kuchiki continues. But a new change took place in the situation. Sensing that Natsuki's Zanpakuto was pressing towards him, Byakuya Kuchiki immediately turned sideways to avoid it. Boom! Natsuki's Zanpakuto hammers the ground. Another pothole appeared on the dilapidated concrete floor. At the same time, a cold wind hit, but the moment Byakuya Kuchiki dodged sideways, he made a horizontal cut. The speed of the attack is very fast. If it was Natsuki at noon today, he might not be able to notice this slash. Pity. After Natsuki broke Reiatsu to captain level. His physical attributes have also ushered in a wave of growth, and his perception has naturally been improved. Ding! Natsuki holds a knife in both hands. Hold Zanpakuto vertically in front of you, and easily block the incoming attack. This scene made Byakuya Kuchiki's eyes full of praise. Among other things, at least Natsuki's reaction was quick. In battle, sharp reflexes are extremely important. But thinking this way in my heart, the movements in my hands are not dissatisfied at all. One knife fails to cut one knife after another slashes towards Natsuki. Ding, ding, ding. At this moment, the sound of the clanging of iron weapons kept ringing. The voice is so loud and the strength is so strong, the blood in the hearts of the two watching the battle is surging. Several afterimages flashed in the air, and a series of icy winds raged from Zanpakuto towards the side. Fast, too fast. Just a breather. Horizontal slash, vertical slash, light pick, short stab. Looking at the dazzling chopping technique, it is deployed at this moment. But without exception, all the attacks towards Natsuki were resolved by him one by one. At the same time, Natsuki felt that his chopping technique was steadily improving. Strictly speaking, Natsuki's chopping technique is far behind that of Byakuya Kuchiki. After all, Natsuki has only been practicing chopping for 3 months. Byakuya Kuchiki has practiced chopping since he was a child, and the time is far beyond the former. But as the two fight, this gap is shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. As this, improving so quickly in battle, Byakuya Kuchiki also noticed this, and a trace of displeasure flashed across his cold face. No matter who, wouldn't it be nice to be used as a whetstone by others? Immediately, Byakuya Kuchiki changed his mind and took a few steps back in a half-cut. Looking at Natsuki, he said coldly, "Your slashing technique is excellent, but let's end the battle here." Byakuya Kuchiki this inexplicable words. The 3 people present were taken aback for a moment, and then they all reacted. This is, Captain Kuchiki wants Shikai. Aburai Renji's eyes widened in disbelief. To know. Even he, the vice-captain of the 6th team. I haven't seen Shikai of Byakuya Kuchiki a few times in total. How strong is this human kid? If before, he may still have the idea of underestimating the enemy. But after seeing the battle between the two, he also knew Natsuki's strength. At least, whether it is chopping or Reiatsu, compared to Natsuki, he thinks he is far from enough. Natsuki, you have to be careful. Rukia felt worried. If you talk about her and Aburai Renji, who knows Byakuya Kuchiki's Shikai better than her sister-in-law. Senbon Sakura. Shikai's back blade turned into a blade hard to distinguish with the naked eye. Attack, defense, Zanpakuto are all at the top level. Can Natsuki really deal with big brother Shikai? However, Natsuki narrowed his eyes slightly. Senbon Sakura Shikai. He just knows how to break it. At the same time, meet the eyes of everyone. Byakuya Kuchiki raised the knife in front of him with one hand, and said coldly. Scatter, Senbon Sakura. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 46, Natsuki wins, the shadow snuggling in the moonlight. Scatter, Senbon Sakura. Byakuya Kuchiki held the knife in front of him and said coldly. The moment the sound fell, the zanpakuto in his hand started from the tip of the knife and gradually turned into broken sharp blades. Refracted light. Make those blades look as gorgeous as a sakura flower. But this gorgeous scenery like sakura flowers is full of cold light, hiding murderous intent. Scattered. Sakura flowers scattered from the sky. Haunt Byakuya Kuchiki and surround it, even if it is guarded, it is convenient to attack at any time. Next moment, a breeze blows through the street. The sakura flowers scattered in the air also hit Natsuki with the wind. To be honest, enjoying the sakura flowers falling under the night of July is a rare and unbelievable sight. But this beautiful view, in essence, it is 1,000 sharp blades invisible to the naked eye. Natsuki didn't just stand still and wait for the attack to strike, he tapped his feet, and the figure was tens of meters behind his legs in an instant. Give a kind of, I don't know the true face of Senbon Sakura, but I feel very cautious. That's right, not only Rukia, Abarai Renji, even Byakuya Kuchiki think so. But, the next moment, Natsuki's figure instantly disappeared from the spot. There was a tingling pain in Byakuya Kuchiki's mind, as if a danger was approaching him. By instinct, he directly controls Senbon Sakura beside him to surround him. But it was too late. Before Senbon Sakura surrounded him, two figures were already standing close to his left and right sides. Two zanpakuto. Like scissors, it crossed and jammed his neck. Byakuya Kuchiki's head can be decapitated at any time with just a swipe of force. And at this moment, it is different from the battle of two people. Rukia and Abarai Renji, who were watching the battle on the side street, suddenly changed their expressions and were dumbfounded. Because they both know how strong is Byakuya Kuchiki. Especially Byakuya Kuchiki, who liberated Shikai, is even more invincible. But, what's going on now? How did Natsuki disappear in an instant and reappear beside the captain in an instant? This incomprehensible scene, it made Abarai Renji feel cold sweat instantly. Only Rukia, looking at another voice next to Natsuki, suddenly remembered the picture he saw when he killed Jillian today. It was the same at the time. When Natsuki was about to be kicked by Jillian, his figure disappeared instantly and appeared in another position. Is it possible? Is this Natsuki's Shikai ability? Abarai Renji also thought about Shikai at this moment, turned to look at Rukia, and asked dryly. You said earlier that this human kid also mastered Shikai. What's showing up now, shouldn't it, is that the Shikai of the human kid? I don't know either. Rukia looked blank. Natsuki first used Shikai in front of me when he killed Jillian, so I don't know what his abilities are. Quote. Hearing this sentence, although there is no definite answer. But with years of experience as a Shinigami, Abarai Renji still thinks this is the ability of that human imp, Shikai. And at this moment, the battle is still going on. With two zanpakuto stuck around the neck, Byakuya Kuchiki couldn't make a move. This also means that he, Byakuya Kuchiki, fell in the hands of a human being, and no one would believe him if he said it. As for the cicada, please, he's already been stuck in the neck with a knife, how can he get out? At the same time, Natsuki's voice sounded from the side. Senbon Sakura, is this your zanpakuto? It is indeed beautiful and dangerous, but my sword is not bad. When you can Shikai. Natsuki knew it from Yuri. If you want to zanpakuto Shikai, the liberation language must be spoken. But there is no clear regulation on the size of the sound, Natsuki understood it on the spot. In this case, why did he shout out his zanpakuto liberation language to the enemy? Isn't this a reminder to the enemy, am I about to be liberated? So, the moment of Byakuya Kuchiki Shikai. Natsuki was actually whispering Yuri's liberation language as well. It's easy to explain next, when Byakuya Kuchiki controls Senbon Sakura to attack Natsuki. Natsuki also attacks, relying on the characteristic that Yuli Phantom cannot be influenced by the outside world. Order Yuri to come directly to Byakuya Kuchiki, and then Natsuki uses Yubu's ability. That's why. The The reason why Natsuki appeared next to Byakuya Kuchiki instantly. At this moment, the result of the battle has been decided. Even if Byakuya Kuchiki can use but Natsuki doesn't think that his is faster than his own shot. There was a long silence. Byakuya Kuchiki lowered his right hand that raised the knife. There was no panic, he just said calmly. You have won this battle. If you lose, you lose. With the air of the head of his Kuchiki family. It's not even unacceptable to lose a battle. As for the seal is limited to 80% of its own strength, and it has been touched before it can be solved. Byakuya Kuchiki does not think. These 2 points are the reasons why I can deny failure. And at this moment, Byakuya Kuchiki concede defeat. Natsumi knew that the other party's character would not continue to pester him after admitting defeat, so he unleashed the liberation neatly. Then back away. Come to Rukia and hold hands again. Looking at the flushed face, Natsuki couldn't help joking again. Like I said, this battle is just my uncle testing my strength, come back safe and sound now. At the same time, Byakuya Kuchiki caught this scene in his eyes. But he just turned around and looked at Abarai Renji, and said flatly, Renji, go back. Team leader. Abarai Renji is a bit unwilling. Although I lost to Natsuki, I can't change my relationship for many years. He knew that leaving Rukia in this world would only make her crimes worse. Pity. Byakuya Kuchiki did not express. He just looked at him calmly, but Abarai Renji couldn't resist the calm gaze, and said dejectedly, I understand. After all, Zanpakuto stabs out of thin air. Not long after, the world transmitting gate appeared in front of the two of them. At this point, Abarai Renji knew that he couldn't change anything, so he just walked in the door. The same goes for Byakuya Kuchiki. But at the moment when the crossing gate was about to close, a voice sounded, less cold and more caring. Don't regret your choice today, Rukia. Rukia Kuchiki. Rukia shuddered. Clutching Natsuki's right hand, he said seriously. I won't regret my choice, Byakuya, big brother. Under the moonlight, the two shadows were infinitely elongated. But different from 3 months ago, at this time, the shadows cuddled together and headed away towards home. Chapter 47, The Calm Before the Storm. Students of Class 3, Year 1, found that Natsuki and Rukia's relationship is much closer. Although they were very close before, they didn't have the kind of, sweet and greasy feeling that they showed today. Physical education. Looking at the two people sitting together, Keigo Asano's eyes were full of curiosity, and he sneaked up to Kurosaki Ichigo, beckoning him to look. Hey, look aside, look at Natsuki and Rukia. Over there, have you noticed that the relationship between Natsuki and Rukia-chan has suddenly become so close? Yes, Ichigo, who originally carried the football. When Keigo Asano did this, he also looked at it curiously. To be honest, if we want to say who is the best classmate in the class who is related to him, Natsuki definitely occupies a place. Therefore, Ichigo also cares more about Natsuki. Looking in the direction Keigo pointed, I found that the relationship between Natsuki and Rukia is indeed quite close. I remember yesterday as if it wasn't. The two of them didn't look like this when they separated yesterday. Could it be that something happened later? At the same time, as if remembering something, Keigo Asano covered his mouth and said to Ichigo secretly. Actually, I saw them yesterday. I went to eat supper at night, and I happened to see them coming out of the convenience store next door. You can get in. Talking and talking, a look of excitement appeared on his face. Could it be that the two finally broke through that level of relationship and became boyfriend and girlfriend? Unfortunately, Ichigo didn't listen to the next words. When he heard about male and female friends, a figure appeared in his mind. I don't know when the relationship between the two began to get closer, and it seemed to be the same as Natsuki before, and it was time to clarify. Then wait until the summer vacation. Find an opportunity for yourself and show her your heart. Thinking in this way, Kurosaki Ichigo couldn't help looking at the girl who was playing football on the sports field. And at this moment, under the tree beside the playground, Natsuki and Rukia enjoy the peace. Aren't you going to move equipment with Ichigo and the others, are you really okay? Looking at the male students carrying the football, Rukia looked down at Natsuki, who was enjoying the knee pillow, and asked curiously. Rest assured, with my relationship with them, no one talks about me, Natsuki joked. For this, Rukia smiled enviously. Indeed, you have a good relationship with your classmates. When she was in school, she also had many good friends at the beginning. It's a pity that he was later adopted by the Kuchiki family, and the classmates around him gradually became alienated. Natsuki sees something wrong with Rukia. He is not a straight guy who doesn't understand anything, and he can tell that Rukia started to get depressed after talking about his classmates. At the same time, Lenovo looked indifferent at first. It's not hard to guess what life was like when she was with Soul Society. At this moment, Natsuki held her hand tightly over his heart, and comforted her. Don't worry, you have me by your side now, and you won't be alone like before. Natsuki. Rukia blushed a little, although the two have established a relationship. But this doesn't mean that they can keep their faces unchanged in the face of Natsuki's earthy love words. Or, she has not experienced the baptism of the internet. The resistance to this so-called earthy love story is almost zero. Looking at Rukia, who was suddenly shy, Natsuki smiled, got up from the lap pillow, and leaned against the tree trunk. You are. Rukia didn't understand what it was all about. But the next moment, suddenly, he felt his vision change. From looking down on Natsuki at first, to leaning in his arms. Natsuki, you. The sudden change made Rukia a little at a loss. This was too sudden. Quietly, a blush appeared on that fair cheek. She wanted to get up, but her strong arms didn't give her a chance to break free. Relax, not only me, Longui, Orihime, they are also your friends. Listen to the names of Longui and Orihime. Rukia looked up subconsciously towards the playground. Looking at it, I found that the girls in the class were all looking at the two of them, and when they saw her cast their eyes, they made cheering movements one after another. Pause time. The already rosy face. This time, the cheeks are even more rosy. Seeing this, Natsuki hugged Rukia, who was as delicate as a doll, in his arms, and said seriously, look, they have always cared about you. Longui, Orihime. Rukia was moved. She didn't expect that there were so many friends who cared about her. So you should cheer up and don't worry Longui and the others too much. Natsuki comforted with a smile. To be frank, this status occurs for Rukia. Last night, Natsuki was mentally prepared. After all, Soul Society is her hometown, where she grew up. Now choose Natsuki. It means giving up the hometown where I grew up. Even facing the arrest and pursuit from the Soul Society, it is normal to feel depressed under such circumstances. For this, Natsuki can't do much. We can only give her more care and let her recover as soon as possible. This concern made Rukia feel much better, and now she leaned quietly in Natsuki's arms. After all, whether it's her or Natsuki, we all know this is the calm before the storm. Chapter 48, Soul Society Strikes, 5 minutes before death. After unraveling, Rukia has a cheerful personality. There are also more exchanges with girls in the class every day. Of course, the girls joked a lot during this period, but since she chose Natsuki, she naturally didn't care. The day before the holiday, Rukia looked at Longui curiously and said, Karaoke. What is that? That's it, the place where everyone relaxes and sings together. Arisawa Tatsuki knows that Rukia is from the Soul Society. He didn't know much about entertainment in this world, so he took out his mobile phone and showed her related videos. Tomorrow is the summer vacation. According to the practice of the world, the day before the holiday must be to find a place to have fun and have fun. That seems interesting. Watching the video of karaoke, Rukia's eyes lit up. Seeing this scene, Natsuki naturally would not stop Rukia from spending more time with friends, and even joked. I've never heard Rukia sing. Haha, then I'll record a video of Rukia singing. Hearing this, Arisawa Tatsuki patted Natsuki on the shoulder carelessly, with an expression of, leave it to me. For this, although Rukia was a little helpless. But I am looking forward to this karaoke more and more. However, in order to prevent a few people from playing too crazy, Natsuki suggested, although tomorrow is summer vacation, don't play too late. Relax, reassure. Before 9 o'clock, I will personally bring Rukia back to you. Arisawa Tatsuki Haki waved his hand, and immediately took Rukia to the agreed karaoke shop without looking back. Seeing the two leave, "Karaoke, I hope you can enjoy yourself." Natsuki smiled. As Rukia's boyfriend, he naturally hoped that the other party could integrate into the worldly life. Obviously, the karaoke proposed by Long Gui is a very good opportunity. Time flies. Soon it was the appointed 9 o'clock. It's the first time to play, are you happy? But Rukia and Long Gui came back for a long time. Natsuki thought that they were too excited, so he sent a message to Rukia on the line. However, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. Rukia's line has not responded to the message. I didn't reply to the message, did something happen? Natsuki felt uneasy. Thinking of the karaoke address left by Long Gui before he left, he immediately put on his clothes and rushed over. But when he arrived at the karaoke shop, he got even more ominous information from the front desk. The guests in private room number 6. According to the records, they left half an hour ago. Get out of the karaoke shop. Natsuki completely lost track of Rukia. Think about what to do if you want to find Rukia. Standing on the side of the road, Natsuki kept thinking. Suddenly, he recalled Ishida Yuryu's words. Lingluo has 2 colors, among which Shinigami's Lingluo is red. Yes, Rukia can also be found through spirit channels. Thinking in this way, Natsuki recalled the method of Ishida Ryu in the plot, and soon after, a series of spirit lines appeared in front of him. But without exception, all spirits are white in color. Suddenly, Natsuki grabbed one of the spirit channels, which had a very familiar aura. Long Gui, why is her breath so weak? Feeling the strength of this spirit channel, Natsuki's uneasy feeling became stronger and stronger. I don't have time to think about it. Natsuki immediately followed this spiritual channel to find. Not long after, in an alley a few hundred meters away, I saw Arasawa Tatsuki who was weak and covered in blood. Long Gui, a flying foot flickered in front of him. Yes, is that Natsuki? Hurry up, save Rukia, she was taken away by Shinigami. Arasawa Tatsuki is confused, but when he heard Natsuki's voice, he barely opened his eyes. Grab Natsuki's hand and tell Rukia's information bit by bit. After the words fell, she couldn't hold on anymore, her eyes closed weakly, and she lost consciousness. Soul Society. Natsuki scowled. He knew that Soul Society would not end here, but he didn't expect that the speed of the other party was so fast. Since Byakuya receded, it's only been 3 days. He even sent someone to come to this world, and sneak attack while he was not around. However, Natsuki getting angry, but he had to forcefully suppress his anger. Long Gui, hold on, I'll go find Uncle Kurosaki, he must have a cure for you. Natsuki picked up the seriously injured Long Gui. Get ready to take her to the Kurosaki clinic to treat her injuries. But just as he picked up Arasawa Tatsuki and was about to rush to the Kurosaki clinic, he suddenly remembered the sound of footsteps. Subconsciously, Natsuki turned to look. Urahara Kazuki. The person who came was Urahara Kazuki, who stood at the corner of the street and said calmly. Are you going to the Kurosaki clinic? It's useless. With the injuries on Miss Longgui's body, if you persist for 5 minutes at most, you will die. The voice fell. Natsuki's pupils widened instantly. There are still 5 minutes, and Long Gui will die. Chapter 49. The soul is out of balance, the only way to save lives. What? There are still 5 minutes, and Long Gui will die. Looking at Urahara Kazuki, Natsuki's face turned ugly for a moment. Based on his knowledge of Urahara Kazuki, although this person is full of calculations, he is not enough to deceive people on such a small matter. But Natsuki knows. The more you are at this time, the more you must keep calm. Rukia can't be taken by Shinigami while taking the life of a friend. Take a deep breath. Natsuki forced himself to calm down and looked at Urahara Kazuki. I don't know when you found out about it, and I don't want to know what Rukia's taking has anything to do with you. But, since you're here, that means there is a way to save Long Gui, am I right? Urahara Kazuki was slightly taken aback. Immediately, he opened the folding fan, covered half of his face, and said with a smile. Damn it, Natsuki, what are you talking about? How could I have something to do with Miss Rukia being taken away? However, feeling the increasingly cold eyes, Only then did Urahara Kazuki realize that he seemed to be doing something to death this time, so he quickly put aside the topic. Ahem. Of course there is a way to save Miss Longwei. However, more equipment is needed, so please take Miss Longwei to the store below. Hear this sentence. Natsuki didn't bother to dwell on his earlier death. With arms around Arisawa Tatsuki, he quickly rushed to the Urahara store with flying feet all the way. This scene gave Urahara Kazuki some headaches. Yeah, even if you rush over, it's useless to leave me here. Say so. But Urahara Kazuki disappeared from the spot in an instant. Its speed is even a bit faster than Natsuki's flying feet. Urahara store. Natsuki just fell from the sky. I saw Urahara Kazuki at the door, and Tessai Tsukubishi beside him. Ahaha, I'm sorry, brother Natsuki, I saw you were too slow, so I rushed back here first, sorry. Meet Natsuki. Urahara Kazuki still spoke in a mean tone. In this regard, Natsuki naturally knows the shortcomings of Felian feet. Although Quincy said that Felian feet are faster than Shunpo, it is still slightly inferior to Shunpo in use. But now he is not in the mood to care about these things. I brought Longwei here, you said you want to save her, what should you do next? Natsuki's tone was a bit cold. The last 5 minutes. It's been 3 minutes now, don't worry. Treatment. Before that, I need to tell you something in advance. Urahara Kazuki opened the folding fan calmly and said softly. Say. Natsuki frowned. Because the lock knot and soul sleep are completely destroyed. Urahara Kazuki didn't care about Natsuki's expression, and continued with a smile. Even if the injury is cured, Miss Longwei's spiritual power will not be left at all. Natsuki was silent for a moment. He didn't expect that the experience that Ichigo should have enjoyed in the plot was replaced by Longwei. Longwei is not Ichigo, does not have Shinigami, Quincy and hollow powers. An ordinary human being who has been destroyed by lock knot and soul sleep, the result is not difficult to guess. But, the person in front of him is Urahara Kazuki. With his cautious character, it is impossible not to have corresponding saving measures. Since you know it so clearly, you must also know the method to make Longwei regain his spiritual power, right? No time wasted. Natsuki doesn't give the opponent a chance to talk nonsense at all. There is a way, of course there is, but... Urahara Kazuki froze, a little uncomfortable with such a direct conversation. Only. Natsuki raised his eyebrows lightly. I always feel that this guy is calculating something again. But at this critical moment, he doesn't care about these trivial matters. Seeing the development re-entering its own rhythm, Urahara Kazuki smiled and tapped Natsuki's chest with a folding fan. I just need your help, brother Natsuki. After all, your talent plays a key role here. Hear the word, talent. Natsuki thought thoughtfully. Although it was originally to cover up the lies about the absorbing skill, it has been used in many places. I didn't expect to use talent again this time. I understand. If there is a need, I will naturally help. Natsuki nodded, indicating that he would also help. But, Urahara Kazuki's next words. But Natsuki frowned subconsciously. What if I say that in order to restore Miss Longwei's spiritual power, not only your talent is needed, but also your Shinigami power? My Shinigami power. Natsuki looked at Ryuki, who was dying in his arms due to the broken knot and soul sleep, wondering why he needed his Shinigami power. And at this time, Urahara Kazuki explains, because Miss Longwei's knot and soul sleep were destroyed. Her soul seems to have 2 holes, and the spiritual power generated will leak out of these 2 holes. This can be regarded as a kind of soul imbalance. I heard the words, soul imbalance. Natsuki felt familiar, but couldn't remember it for a while. The soul is out of balance. What does this have to do with my Shinigami power? Don't tell me, it's used to block your so-called hole. No, it's not that simple. If you want to solve the soul imbalance, the easiest way is to inject a soul that is opposite to the human itself directly into Miss Longwei's soul. Urahara Kazuki shook the fan. Indicates that Natsuki guessed the wrong answer, and then said solemnly. The opposite of Shinigami is Quincy, and the opposite of human is hollow, so. This moment, Natsuki understood what Urahara Kazuki meant. If you want to save Longwei and regain her spiritual power, you need to inject virtual power into her soul, right? That's right. You have mastered Hollow. No, it should be said that when you rescued Masaki-san, your Zanpakuto was infected with the power of Hollow, right? Wow. Urahara Kazuki, an upper folding fan. Looking at Natsuki within, I already knew everything. Look. From your Zanpakuto, I feel the aura of Shu. You are the key to saving Miss Longwy. Chapter 50. The Truth, the Unexpected Visitor at the Door. Urahara Store. A group of people stood in front of the store. You are the key to saving Miss Longwy. Urahara Kazuki's voice echoed in his ears. Natsuki looked up at the other party, but did not deny it. Hollow, nothing more. It's not Soul Society, no need to hide it. What's more, Urahara Kazuki is one of the people who have studied Hollow the most, so it's not surprising to see this. So, compared to Hollow or something, Natsuki is more interested in saving Ryuki. As for the power of Shinigami, it's not impossible to restore it. Even if you inject all of it into Longwy's body, with your own recovery ability, you can recover all of it the next day. What should I do? Don't worry, you just need to be like last time. Just inject your own Reiatsu into Miss Longwy's body. Urahara Kazuki chuckled softly. The eyes hidden under the brim of the hat carry a hint of calculation. Natsuki seems to have misunderstood himself, and he can always feel a vague sense of alienation from him. If you can take advantage of this opportunity, changing how Natsuki thinks of himself might help him a little bit in the future against Aizen. Tessai. Thinking of this, Urahara Kazuki clapped his hands. Yes, manager. Tessai Tsukubishi stepped out from the side, said an incomprehensible chant, and clapped his hands together. Question mark. Forbidden technique. Time stop. Moment. Arasawa Tatsuki's breath stagnated instantly. Don't worry. Urahara Kazuki smiled confidently. At the same time, he tapped Natsuki's shoulder with a folding fan, and comforted him. Tessai is a reassuring clerk. With him in hand, you don't have to worry. The voice fell. Thinking of something else, I added a few words. Miss Longwy is seriously injured and needs urgent treatment. Wait until Miss Longwy's injury is healed, and then you can inject the power of Shinigami into his body. I see. Natsuki nodded knowingly. In fact, if Longwy's injuries were not too serious, he can only hold on for the last 5 minutes, and he can ask Orihime for help. Although Orihime's ability has only been awakened for a few days, and may not even be able to use it yet, Aizen can't help but praise the pervert's healing ability. But unfortunately, for Longwy, time is the most lacking thing. And at this moment, solved the problem of Longwy healing. Next, is dealing with Rukia being taken away by the Soul Society. Thinking of this, Natsuki's eyes gradually became cold. He looked directly at Urahara Kazuki, and said coldly. I'll talk about Longwy's recovery later. But there are 2 problems before us. 1. Who came to this world to take Rukia away? 2. Who hurt Longwy like this? Hear this sentence. A wry smile appeared on Urahara Kazuki's face. He already knew that after the safety of Miss Longwy was resolved, Natsuki would continue to ask Rukia's questions. But, come out and help this time. It means being ready to tell Natsuki the truth. Even if the person who made the move this time still has some sympathy with him before. The 2nd division is the 2nd division of the 13 divisions of the Soul Society Gote. Urahara Kazuki put down his folding fan and said seriously. Of course, to be more precise. The one who took away Miss Rukia and seriously injured Miss Longwy this time is the 1st team in the 2nd division, Xingjun. As for why Miss Longwy was seriously injured, guess according to past practice. The order they got this time is to get rid of everyone who hinders the mission. The moment I heard the 2nd team, Natsuki was not surprised, and even had a feeling that it was so. Although he doesn't know much about the organizational structure of the Soul Society, he still knows the existence of the 2nd team after reading the original book. That's just them. Regardless of Longwy's human status, he will kill him. As for the person who can now command the Xing army, it must be the captain of the 2nd team, Sui Feng. Thinking of this, Natsuki's eyes became extremely cold. Soul Society 2nd team. The killing intent burst out in an instant. This killing intent made even Urahara Kazuki, who is also at the captain level, take a step back. However, after taking a step back, The corner of Urahara Kazuki's mouth lifted into a satisfied smile again. Strong strength is good, the stronger the strength, it means that if you get Natsuki's friendship this time, the more help you will get in the future. And at this moment, knowing that it was done by the second team, Natsuki didn't have a silly incompetent rage. First, discuss with Urahara Kazuki a plan to treat Arasawa Tatsuki. Immediately. Just stop by the Urahara store. While practicing, he waited to help Arasawa Tatsuki recover. For Natsuki to live here, Urahara Kazuki naturally wished for it, only the more Natsuki owes himself, he can ask for help in the future. He did not hesitate to come down to teach Natsuki himself. The reason is to want Natsuki to owe me more favors. On this point, Natsuki knows what Urahara Kazuki thinks, and Urahara Kazuki knows that Natsuki knows what he thinks, and Natsuki knows that Urahara Kazuki knows that he knows what he thinks. But so what? Children only tell right from wrong, adults only look at the pros and cons. Natsuki and Urahara Kazuki don't mind what each other thinks at all, as long as they can achieve their goals. However, things are often unexpected. Even though Natsuki didn't want to involve Ichigo, Orihime and Yasutora in this matter like in the original book. But the morning of the third day of summer vacation, while Natsuki was helping Ryuki with his recovery training in the basement of the Urahara store, Kurosaki Ichigo, Inoue Orihime, Sato Yasutora, and even Ishida Ryu appeared at the door of the Urahara store. Wow! Urahara Kazuki opens the door for business. Immediately, scared by the group of people in front of him, he greeted meaningfully. Yeah, I really met some distinguished customers. I don't know what you want to buy, but this store has everything. Check out our playlist for more amazing novels. Chapter 51, Special Training in Underground Space, Cat Teacher Yoruichi. Underground Space. Natsuki and Arasawa Tatsuki looked at each other warily. The reiatsu of both are controlled at the same level to ensure the training is effective. Boom! Arasawa Tatsuki erupted into a faint blue reiatsu. Then the figure disappeared, and when she reappeared, she had already come to Natsuki's side, and kicked her away with a side kick. It's pretty fast. Feeling the incoming attack, Natsuki commented. In the past 3 days, Arasawa Tatsuki not only completely recovered his knots and soul sleep, but also increased his spiritual power significantly. According to Urahara Kazuki, Arasawa Tatsuki is equivalent to the third seat of the Shinigami team. This time, it can be said that it was a blessing in disguise, and Natsuki had to say that luck is really good. But no matter how emotional, the movements in Natsuki's hands were not slow at all. Cross your hands together, stand in front of Long Gui's attack, and easily receive her attack. Sweeping under the foot, Long Gui, who was standing on one leg, fell to the ground. Damn it! Arasawa Tatsuki glared dissatisfiedly, as if blaming Natsuki for being playful again. Then got up again, but this time there was no direct attack. Instead, keep moving around Natsuki, trying to find his flaws. At the same time, while Natsuki guards Arasawa Tatsuki, there was also a gaze locked behind him, rustling, the sound of breaking through the air came. This is, behind. Sensing the attack, Natsuki immediately dodged to the side. But this time the attack came from just a small stone, and the real attack was in the direction he wanted to avoid. Meow me again. A voice sounded. Natsuki suddenly felt a pain in the forehead. Immediately, a pitch-black cat landed on the ground and licked its paws leisurely. It hurts. Natsuki touched his forehead helplessly. With his captain-level reiatsu, but he can barely detect Yoruichi's movements. Is this the so-called flash goddess? And far away, Arasawa Tatsuki, who was about to launch an attack, saw this. Walking to the side of one person and one cat, he said with emotion, Mr. Yoruichi is still amazing, and he touched Natsuki easily. Natsuki didn't speak. Turning his eyes to the black cat that was still licking its paw, he said quietly. Yoruichi, you pressed your paw on my forehead just now, and now you lick it again. Do you think my forehead is dirty? The voice fell. The black cat that was licking its paw leisurely raised its head. Looking at Natsuki, he said in a tone of, you are talking nonsense. Of course meow. There is dust everywhere, your forehead is covered with dust. However, if my forehead is covered with dust, and you press it with your paw, and now you lick your paw, isn't it equivalent to licking ashes? Seeing that the other party didn't understand the meaning, Natsuki simply and bluntly expressed his thoughts. Good guy. Now Yoruichi was silent, she got used to the cat form. The action of licking his paws was completely subconscious, and he didn't expect anything so trivial. Hey. Seeing that Natsuki has achieved his goal. Satisfied, I found a place to train Shunpo. In these 3 days, he was not beaten in vain, he has already learned Yoruichi's Shunpo. Arisawa Tatsuki watching this scene. Walking up to Yoruichi, bending down and hugging him in his arms, he comforted him. It's normal for cats to lick their paws. Mr. Yoruichi doesn't need to care about whether the ashes are not ashes. You see, I eat a lot of ashes every day when I train here. For Long Gui, the cat in front of me is not simple. It is the practice teacher that Mr. Urahara found for himself. Arisawa Tatsuki was skeptical about a cat that could talk and teach itself to be strong at first. But after seeing Yoruichi beat Natsuki, she realized in an instant that this cat was her thigh. In the past few days, I practiced with teacher Yoruichi, not only mastered the surge of Reiatsu, but also learned a lot of physical skills. I am so happy. And at this moment, my uncle doesn't care about such trivial matters. Even being held in Long Gui's arms, Yoruichi's mouth is still so hard. But in order to interrupt the topic, it raised its head to look into the air with flickering eyes, and said at the same time, "Someone is coming. It seems to be your classmate, the girl named Orihime is also there." Orihime. Arisawa Tatsuki looked at Yoruichi in a daze. What's the situation? How did Orihime come here? Also, who are the classmates and what are they doing here? However, before she could react, the entrance to the space suddenly opened from the outside. Immediately, he poked his head in, saw the underground scenery, and exclaimed, "It's amazing, there is such a big space underground." Arisawa Tatsuki. She didn't expect Orihime to come here. Then the classmates Yoruichi sensei is talking about, could they be thinking like this? However, several figures entered the underground space together. Apart from Orihime, these figures are Kurosaki Ichigo, Sato Yasutora and Ishida Ryu, who she is familiar with. Why are you here? Seeing the arrival of several people, Long Gui showed surprise on his face. Chapter 52. Preparations before the battle, the attack will meet in 5 days. Good morning, Long Gui. Enter the underground space of the Urahara store. Inoue Orihime became excited instantly, and greeted Arisawa Tatsuki even more happily. Good morning. No. You haven't answered my question yet, why are you all here? See good sisters and say hello to yourself. Arisawa Tatsuki responded subconsciously, but halfway through speaking, he suddenly reacted. Tilted his head. Looking at the 4 people in front of him in confusion, he asked. It's summer vacation, you don't sleep at home, what are you doing here? But don't want to. The sound just fell. Orihime's face changed, and he was about to cry. Long Gui, you really worry me to death. As he spoke, he rushed forward and hugged Long Gui. Orihime, is this you? This action made Arisawa Tatsuki even more confused. Fortunately, Natsuki, who was training Shunpo, saw a few people coming, so he stopped training and walked over, explaining. You were injured too badly earlier. Must stay in the Urahara store for healing, of course I can't go home. In order not to worry your family, I decided to tell Orihime about the situation and ask her to help cover it. I think Orihime is just too worried about you. Natsuki reminded kindly. Simply tell the whole story. This made Arisawa Tatsuki look at Natsuki gratefully again. Without Natsuki's help, I don't know how anxious my family would be. But quickly reacted again. This shouldn't be the reason for everyone to appear here together. Then what about you, why did you come here too? Arisawa Tatsuki tilted his head and looked at the boys beside him. Us. Ichigo raised his eyebrows angrily. Last night Orihime suddenly sent a message, saying that it was an attack, serious injury, Rukia was taken away, etc. Orihime is right, Natsuki. Natsuki heard that. Can't help but glance at Orihime more. At that time, I just wanted to make her feel at ease, so I told the general situation, I never thought that I would be so caring. Ah, that's true. Natsuki nodded. The voice fell. Ichigo walked up to Natsuki and stared at him. Rukia is also my friend. Since this kind of thing happened, I can't just watch her be executed. If we assume. At first, I just wanted to help the two as friends. But when he entered the store, he asked about the consequences of Rukia being brought back to the Soul Society, and Urahara Kazuki revealed the death penalty, which made him change his mind. This time, not just to help Natsuki. I don't even want Rukia, a good friend, to die for such a simple reason. I understand. Natsuki looked into Ichigo's eyes. Feeling the firmness in his eyes, he gave up the idea of persuasion. As expected of the protagonist of Shinigami, even though he didn't have a direct relationship with him this time, he still helped him without hesitation. Natsuki turned his gaze to Sato Yasutora. Sato Yasutora said calmly, "Student Kuchiki saved me, I can't ignore her suffering." Natsuki nods. Repaying the favor is truly irresistible. Then his eyes turned to Ishida Ryu, who was standing quietly aside. Since the end of the competition, the two haven't spoken to each other, so their relationship isn't good enough to break into the Soul Society together. Maybe Natsuki's eyes are too straightforward. Ishida Ryu pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said bluntly, "Don't think too much, I just want to prove to the Shinigami of Soul Society that Quincy is not necessarily worse than Shinigami." When you say this, please take away the rosiness on your face. Otherwise, a discerning person will be able to see that you are still arrogant. Glancing at Longwei and Yoruichi, who were holding back their laughter, Natsuki sighed softly, looked at the crowd again, and then said seriously, "I don't really want to drag you into the water." Heard that? Several people's faces changed. Just about to cast a puzzled look, Natsuki said again, "But if you can find this place, you must be mentally prepared. If this is the case, then please everyone." To this extent, he didn't dryly say how dangerous this time was. Since they can find them, it means that they are prepared in their hearts, and if they mention danger or something, they will look down on them instead. Heard that? Ichigo and the others looked at each other. Even though they were already prepared, there was a hint of joy in their eyes. However, at this moment, a voice sounded. Urahara Kazuki did not know when he appeared behind the crowd, clapped his hands and said, "Since everyone has decided to go to the Soul Society to rescue Miss Rukia, why not start special training together?" Special training. A group of people looked around without knowing why. Urahara Kazuki snapped open the fan and explained, "Your strength is still too weak. Even if you go to the Soul Society, you will not be able to provide effective combat power, and you will even be delayed. So, a temporary special training is essential." These words are somewhat silent. But everyone knows what Urahara Kazuki said is true. Compared with real masters, their strength is indeed somewhat insufficient. But at this time, Ichigo took a few steps forward. Look at Urahara Kazuki with extra seriousness. Isn't it because of lack of strength? Since you proposed special training for the clog hat, there must be a way to make us stronger, please. The moment the sound fell, Inoue Orihime and Sato Yasutora also nodded and took a step forward, looking at Urahara Kazuki with serious expressions. Of the four, only Ishida Ryu did not accept help. However, judging from the bandages wrapped around his fingers, it is estimated that there has been a lot of training in the past few days. Special training, I can do it myself. Heard that? Urahara Kazuki looked at the four of them. Covering his chin with a folding fan, he said meaningfully, "Now that everyone has made a decision, let's set a meeting time. 5 days, wait until the night after 5 days, everyone will gather again and go to the Soul Society to rescue Miss Rukia. How?" Chapter 53, I can do it, you will know it once you feel it. 5 days. Listen to the time Urahara Kazuki mentioned. Everyone subconsciously looked at each other and thought it was all right. I think 5 days is just right, it can improve personal strength, and it won't delay the time for too long. Natsuki stroked his chin and spoke thoughtfully. After the voice fell, Sato Yasutora touched his arm with a very serious expression. 5 days is enough. I will master my abilities within 5 days. Heard that? Inoue Orihime also stepped up. Touching the hairpin on his head with one hand, he also said confidently, I believe in myself, and I can also familiarize myself with my abilities within 5 days. Hearing what the two said, Natsuki, Urahara Kazuki and Yoruichi all nodded in satisfaction. If you don't even have the confidence to master your abilities within 5 days, how can you go to the Soul Society? At the same time, seeing that two friends are so serious, Arisawa Tatsuki couldn't help but feel happy, and said happily, "The two of you need to be familiar with abilities, why not come here with me and receive the teachings of Yoruichi-sensei?" After all, she looked down at Yoruichi in her arms, and said honestly, "Ms. Yoruichi, do you think Orihime and Sato can stay here and train with me?" Quote question mark question mark question mark question mark question mark question mark quote. See this scene. The group of four looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. They didn't understand, what happened to Arisawa Tatsuki, how could he call a teacher to a cat? But at this time, just when the four of them were puzzled, Yoruichi, who was quietly lying in Arisawa Tatsuki's arms, quietly raised a paw and said casually, "Sure, as long as they want to. After all, teaching you one is also teaching, and teaching a group is also teaching." A magnetic sound resounds. The four of them were stunned and looked at Yoruichi in disbelief. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Cat, the cat is talking. Hey, I'm not delusional, right? Wow, it's really cool that Mr. Kitty can talk. Long way, I want to hug Mr. Kitty too. The four reacted differently. But except for Inoue Orihime, the other three boys were shocked. Cats can talk, which literally shocks their worldview for a whole year. Interesting. Watching the reactions of several people, a hint of mischief flashed in Yoruichi's eyes. Appearing in the form of a cat, and suddenly speaking intimidatingly, this may be the reason why she always likes to maintain the form of a cat. A moment later, wait for a few people to recover. Arisawa Tatsuki continued to ask Kurosaki Ichigo. Ichigo, do you want to train with us here too? No, I'm going to train at home this time, and I'll come back to you after 5 days. Ichigo shook his head and refused, although he also wants to practice with everyone. But his parents seemed to have something to teach him, so they had to give up this opportunity. Uncle Ishin and Masaki Aunt. Hearing this, Arisawa Tatsuki's eyes sparkled with curiosity. As childhood sweethearts, the two know their families better, so they naturally know that Kurosaki Masaki, who has been dead for many years, has been resurrected. But now the dead Shendu appeared. She felt that it was not difficult to revive a person. But what makes her curious is that Uncle Ishin and Aunt Masaki seem to be not as simple as they appear. Time flies. After agreeing to 5 days of special training, everyone is immersed in practice. Especially the newcomers Sato Yasutora and Inoue Orihime. They are all newly awakened abilities, and it is time to practice and consolidate them. As for the Urahara store at the moment, including Natsuki, there are 4 captain-level masters. Natsuki, Urahara Kazuki, Tessai Tsukubishi, Shihuin Yoruichi, the 4 of them give advice at random, which is a big gain for both of them. Therefore, the 2 of them successfully mastered their abilities on the 3rd day. Now follow Long Way to learn fighting skills. You don't need to be able to kill enemies in Soul Society, just enough to protect yourself. Certainly. If you talk about the one with the biggest improvement, of all people, it must be Natsuki without a doubt. Perhaps because of the rapid growth in the special training, Sato, Orihime, and Longui are dropping attribute lights almost every day. Although no skills, it just increases the basic attributes, but it also makes Natsuki stronger. And now, Natsuki is taking Yoruichi's quiz. In the underground space, Natsuki was panting slightly in his deadly outfit, and in the distance was Shihuin Yoruichi who had returned to his human form. Slowly let out a mouthful of dirty air. Natsuki's eyes were fixed on Shihuin Yoruichi who was opposite. Shihuin Yoruichi is different from normal Shinigami in that she is more powerful in body skills than in chopping skills. Even if you get close many times, Zanpakuto slashed at the opponent without sparing any strength. For so many days, but never left a scar on the opponent's body. Even, relying on her excellent white hits, she counterattacked every time she was attacked. Boy, can you do it? Shihuin Yoruichi mocked, but his eyes were full of caution. The more she fights against Natsuki, the more she feels his monster-like talent. During these 5 days, face your own white hits at first. From being unable to fight back, to gradually reacting, and now drawing a sword to fight back, fast, too fast, it's a bit outrageously fast. However, in the face of provocation, Natsuki snapped back without hesitation. Whether I can do it or not, you will know once you feel it. The voice fell, and Zanpakuto radiated a sharp edge as he rushed towards Yoruichi. Well done. Yoruichi's eyes lit up, also rushed towards Natsuki. At this moment, 2 figures shuttled in the underground space, and the huge Reiatsu collided with each other again and again. Chapter 54, The Purple Skill Light Group, Marching into the Soul Society. Natsuki appears in front of Yoruichi. Zanpakuto in the hand is cut from left to right. Natsuki boy, you're not fast enough. Facing the attack, Yoruichi jumped perfectly to avoid it. By the way, he launched a counterattack in midair, exerted force on his waist, raised his right leg, and after a short period of energy accumulation, a side kick in the air hit Natsuki. Subconsciously put his left arm in front of his body. Blocked the attacking side kick, but couldn't stop moving back tens of meters. Feeling the slightly trembling left arm, Natsuki couldn't help but sigh, your kick is really strong enough. Of course, because I'm Yoruichi. While Yoruichi responded, he launched another offensive. This time Shunpo is used together. When he came 5 meters in front of Natsuki, he jumped suddenly. A flip in the air, and then the right leg stretches out and kicks Natsuki below with the lower leg. The power to flip, plus Yoruichi's own power. The two are superimposed on each other, and the power contained in this leg is extremely strong. Hey, this is just a quiz, and you're actually playing for real. Natsuki was shocked. If kicked, broken bones are probably the best ending. But this ultra-fast attack even exceeded the perception of battle instinct, and only a trace could be vaguely noticed. Simply, use the second effect of battle instinct. Skill effect 2. Actively used in battle, it can accurately perceive the target's flaws, and has a 20% chance to predict the target's next attack. Pause time. Natsuki felt himself lifted. Not only the brain, but even the thinking became much clearer. Looking at Yoruichi, who was attacking in midair, but unconsciously staring at the joint of her right leg, there was a light in her eyes. Raise your hands, Zanpakuto. After comparing the distance, place it horizontally above your head. With Yoruichi's strength, if he continues to kick down regardless, that powerful force may help Zanpakuto cut off his own calf. Yoruichi in midair, naturally aware of this, he praised Natsuki. This kid has a good eye. He discovered his weakness so quickly, so he has passed the test. The voice fell. Yoruichi changed his posture. After the body rotated twice in midair, it landed firmly on the ground. Then, just as Natsuki was about to attack, she suddenly waved her right hand and announced. Natsuki kid, this time the test has passed, the battle is over. It's a pity, I thought I could fight for a while longer. Natsuki stopped attacking and shook his head regretfully. He has feelings. If you continue to fight, maybe the swordsmanship can be further improved. When I thought about it in my heart, I cast my eyes inadvertently. But with this gesture, he suddenly found a purple attribute light cluster falling from Yoruichi's feet at some point. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Purple skill light group. At this moment, Natsuki was completely stunned. This is the first time I have seen a purple skill light group. Before he had time to think about it, he subconsciously waved his hand, and the purple light cluster flew into his body. Moment. The long-lost system sounded. Question mark. Ding. Host picks up skill white hits. This skill will be displayed in the skill list. The moment the sound fell, Natsuki felt his body strengthened. The strengthening range is not large, it is more like making the body adapt to the new skill white hits. Subconsciously, Natsuki opened his own attribute list. Natsuki. Question mark. SX. Male. Race human. Basic attributes: strength 47, speed 55, body 43, wisdom 44. Skills: swordsmanship LV.7, 11 35ths, white hits LV.5, 0 25ths, absorption LV.4, 14 20ths, combat instinct LV.2, 3 tenths. The skill acquired this time is white hits. Perhaps because of the purple skill light group, it was at LV.5 level from the beginning. White hits. When attacking the target in close quarters, the attack power is increased by 50%, and the perception of the white hits skills mastered is improved. Natsuki felt the newly acquired skills in place. Although there is no explosive improvement, the white hits moves he has learned in the past few days have a sense of mastery. It's not like I only learned it in 5 days. On the contrary, it is more like a master who has been immersed in white hits for decades. 8th day of summer vacation. The agreed upon time has come. And at this moment, in the underground space of the Urahara store, Natsuki, Kurosaki Ichigo, Sato Yasutora, Ishida Ryu, Inoue Orihime, and Arasawa Tatsuki lined up in order. In front of the crowd. It's an odd-looking device. Urahara Kazuki clapped his hands and then introduced. Everyone, this is the spiritual transformation device that allows you to enter the Soul Society. Spirit transformation device. Everyone subconsciously repeated. That's right, the Soul Society is a world of souls. To enter, you have to become a soul. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Several people looked at each other. Firmness is written in everyone's eyes. We are ready, Mr. Urahara, open the passage to the Soul Society. Natsuki spoke first. Heard that. Urahara Kazuki lowered the brim of his hat and said seriously. Then I will open the door, remember, rush in the moment the door is opened. The moment the sound fell, he flung open the door to the Soul Society. At this moment, Yoruichi, Natsuki, Ichigo, Orihime, Ryuki, Sato, and Ryu rushed towards the door together. Immediately, with a burst of dazzling light flashed, everyone disappeared from the underground space in an instant. Urahara Kazuki walked up to the converter, staring at the people who had just disappeared as if his eyes had passed through the limitations of time and space, and murmured. I'll leave everything to you guys, Natsuki, Yoruichi. Chapter 55. Arrive at the Soul Society, the sky collapsing swirl pattern hand card. Soul Society West Rukongai. A door appeared in the air, and several figures fell from it. What? Looking at the suspended environment, the screams kept ringing out. Fortunately, the falling distance from the sky was not high, and few people were harmed. At the same time, a black cat and a tall figure landed smoothly. The tall figure looked at the surrounding environment, and a row of low bungalows came into view. Is this Rukongai? How should I put it? I feel quite backward. Looking at its development, it seems that it is still at the level of hundreds of years ago. I don't know if it is the whole Soul Society or Rukongai alone. The tall figure was talking to himself. Of course, this person is Natsuki who came to the Soul Society to save people. Perhaps it was the correction power of the plot. The few people just entered the world transmitting gate, they encountered a sudden obstacle in the plot. But after 5 days of special training, the strength of the few people present has improved more than that in the plot. Although the process was a bit thrilling, he finally managed to pass through the passage and came to the Soul Society. And at this moment, the area where everyone is now, West Rukongai of Soul Society, just a few meters away is the entrance to Jingling Ting. At the same time, the few people who fell to the ground were also relieved. I began to look at the so-called Soul Society, but the rows of bungalows made several people frown subconsciously. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. This is the Soul Society, I thought it was quite dignified. Kurosaki Ichigo looked at the surrounding environment, and the tone of his mouth was a little inexplicable. It feels really weird, it completely broke the fantasy in my mind when I came here. Hearing this, Arasawa Tatsuki, Inoue Orihime, Sato Yasutora, and Ishida Ryu all nodded their heads deeply. Disappointed. It must be a little disappointing. Originally, everyone thought that the time when Shinigami lived was a kind of gloomy or very majestic place. But don't want to. Waited for so long, but let me see this. Unconsciously, there was a feeling that I had been deceived. Puff ha ha. Yoruichi watched everyone's expressions. Sneaking as if satisfied, the expressions of these people are so funny. But after laughing, Yoruichi is back to being serious again. Cough, and speak only after you have attracted everyone's attention. The place we are in now is not the Seraiti where the Shinigami live, but the Rukongai where the wandering souls live. As for the so-called floating souls, they are souls sent to the Soul Society after death. Hear Yoruichi speak. The eyes of those who were originally disappointed suddenly lit up. Sure enough, the place where Shinigami lives should not be so dilapidated, and it would be excusable if the wandering soul lives there. At the same time, Yoruichi followed the trend and looked a few meters away. I saw that there seemed to be an invisible barrier over there, which made Rukongai's construction come to an abrupt stop. Over there, that's where the Shinigami live. Subconsciously, several people looked in the direction Yoruichi said. I found that everything is really different, tidy streets, clean buildings, and Shinigami figures seen from time to time. Make them subconsciously exclaim, this is where the Shinigami should live. The architectural style is quite close to the present world. I don't know the specific situation inside. Developed to this, everything is the same as in the plot. But the next scene caused a slight deviation in the direction. See, Yoruichi suddenly walked in front of several people. Hey, let's go, we don't have a pass, so we can't enter Seraiti directly from here. At this time, Ichigo rushed in recklessly. But Natsuki was surprisingly calm and responded to Yoruichi's words first. If we need a place to stay, I may know of one, and may have a way to help us get into Seraiti. The voice fell. Yoruichi and Natsuki looked at the same thing. Neither of them expected that Kurosaki Ichigo would say such words. So, doesn't it mean that Kurosaki Isshin has informed him about the Shiba family? At the same time, Ichigo is new to Soul Society. But as if he was very familiar with the surroundings, he found a house at random, and shouted at the door. Is anyone here? Excuse me, I want to ask for directions. Maybe it's because the protagonist's halo is so strong, he yelled twice, and someone walked out of the house. This is. Natsuki's eyes sparkled. He didn't expect Ichigo to be so lucky. Find any house at random, and the one who came out was actually the elder in the plot. But there is no plot of Saidanfeng. The elders of Rukongai didn't have a good impression of the group, and just drove them away. We don't welcome you here, leave quickly. But the sound just fell. But I heard Kurosaki Ichigo said in a sarcastic way. I'm from the Shiba pyrotechnician's house, look. I haven't finished talking. The eyes of the elder in front of him suddenly changed. Shiba pyrotechnic master's house, do you have any evidence? After that, he subconsciously looked at Kurosaki Ichigo. For this, although I don't know why this person has changed so much. But Ichigo still reached out and took out a hand card from his pocket. The pattern engraved on it was the symbol of the Shiba clan, the spiral pattern of falling into the sky and collapsing. Unexpectedly, the moment I saw this hand card, the old man looked relaxed for a moment, and said with a smile. It turned out to be Shiba's little brother. If that's the case, you might as well come into my house and have a sit. It's been a long time since no one has come here except the griffin. Unexpectedly, this different attitude before and after. In an instant, the few people who didn't know why were stunned. They all looked at Kurosaki Ichigo in surprise, not understanding what was going on with his hand. As soon as it comes out, why did the old man's attitude change in an instant? Also, who is the Garen vulture in the old man's mouth? Does Ichigo know it? Only Natsuki and Yoruichi. The two nodded with confident expressions on their faces. Since Ichigo even used the name of the Shiba family, he must have been informed of the situation of the Shiba family. Only, thinking of Shiba Yixin's naive look. The two shuddered, feeling an ominous premonition. Uncle Isshin, that guy Isshin, how much did he tell Ichigo? Single quote. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 56, Kissing the Cats, Visiting the Kuchiki Family. Elder's House. Natsuki and his party are being entertained by the elders. While the elder was chatting with everyone, he was also secretly looking for news. Although he has a good relationship with the Shiba family, he is not stupid. He is only a fool who believes in the Shiba family's cards. For this, Kurosaki Ichigo didn't care at all. He directly said his own information, without any intention of hiding it. My father's name is Kurosaki Isshin. According to what he said, his previous name in Soul Society was Shiba Isshin. Tell me when you set off. If you encounter difficulties in Rukongai, you can reveal the name of Shiba Pyrotechnician. Upon hearing this, Orihime, Longui, Sato, and Yulong finally came to their senses. Ichigo's seemingly silly father was actually a Shinigami before, which is too unexpected. Certainly. A few people just thought of this. I don't know at all. Shiba Yixin was not just a Shinigami before, but the captain of the Shinigami who was in charge of the Juban team. Only Elder Rukongai. When I heard the name Shiba Yixin, my eyes trembled slightly. However, he quickly restrained his expression again, but this time his attitude towards Kurosaki Ichigo became more gentle. Come on, let's have a snack. This is me, the old man, I can't bear to eat it myself. The enthusiasm of the elders let a few people feel a little overwhelmed. But in the end, I still got a lot of information from the elders. For example, if all the people foolishly broke into Seraiti just now, the guard Saidanfang would stop them. It's just that no one found out. Before they knew it, Yoruichi and Natsuki disappeared. Dozens of meters outside the elder's house. Natsuki is leaning against a tree with cat Yoruichi on his head. Are you going to find Byakuya boy? I can send you there, but you are not afraid that after the two meet, he will directly take you down. Lie on top of Natsuki's head. Yoruichi is lounging like a real cat. But what she said, outsiders might be shocked to drop their jaws. A cat actually said to go to the captain of the Seraiti No. 6 team. Judging from the confident appearance, it seemed to be talking about a trivial matter. However, after Natsuki heard Yoruichi's inquiry, immediately waved his hands and said directly, "Of course I'm afraid." Shihuan Yoruichi, since you are afraid, why do you want me to send you there? Really, just now I thought you had some well-planned plan. Yoruichi jumped straight from the top of his head. Maoyan brushed Natsuki aside angrily, complaining in his mouth. This kid is so annoying. She thought he had some kind of plan, so she asked, but she didn't expect him to be too scared. In no mood, Natsuki bent down and hugged him. As if forgetting her identity, she smoothed her hair and explained. I did come to Soul Society because of Rukia's dishes, but apart from me, the person who is more worried about Rukia's safety now is actually him, Byakuya Kuchiki. Yoruichi froze. At this moment, I forgot the struggle, and listened to him continue. Byakuya Kuchiki is unable to help Rukia due to oath and family restrictions. But I'm different. Whether it's good or bad, my appearance will bring a little change to the situation where Rukia must die. As long as he can think normally, he probably won't arrest me. Having said that, Natsuki paused, with a smile on the corner of his mouth, and said confidently. What's more, I heard from Rukia that Byakuya doesn't seem to be the only one talking about the Kuchiki family. The moment the sound fell, Yoruichi was relieved and broke free from Natsuki's arms, jokingly said. Natsuki, you are really a pervert, you won't let go of even a cat, but I agree to your request. After all, turn around and walk towards the end of Rukongai. But a sentence appeared in her mind unconsciously. This kid is shameless, he almost. To know. Cats are very sensitive animals. Yoruichi's transformation technique can perfectly restore the cat's feeling. If she hadn't reacted a step earlier and broke free from Natsuki earlier, she would have been ashamed. Natsuki didn't know what was going on. He also raised cats before time traveling, but he has been busy practicing after time traveling, so he has no time to raise cats. Never thought. When Yoruichi lay on his head just now, that soft touch directly made him a cat addict, so he grabbed it in his arms and sucked it. As for whether the cat is safe or not. Funny, I'm so addicted to cats that I still care about this. After an hour, Yoruichi is still in cat form. Dodge countless Shinigami along the way and bring Natsuki to the house of Kuchiki, one of the four nobles of the Soul Society. As expected of a Kuchiki family. Looking at the quaint yet luxurious mansion, Natsuki said with emotion. But he didn't realize that Yoruichi, who was still in the form of a cat, came to the door with a letter in his mouth at some point. Meow, called out. In the curious eyes of the two guards in front of the door, I put down the greeting stickers. Then he turned around, took graceful catwalks, one step at a time, walked up to Natsuki who was hiding in the dark, and patted his leg. Natsuki looked down, but Yoruichi turned around and waved to the guard. Then, in front of the three of them, he turned and left leisurely. Only Natsuki and the two gatekeepers were left, staring at each other. Natsuki. Guards. Chapter 57. It's an unforgivable crime to have the face to come to Kuchiki's house. West Rukongai. When Yoruichi returned to the elder's house, Kurosaki Ichigo and the others were still inquiring about news with the elder, completely unaware of their departure. At this time, Arasawa Tatsuki asked curiously. Ask the elder what he said about the griffin earlier. Speaking of which, who is the griffin that the elder told us earlier? Is it your grandson? After an afternoon of getting along, the relationship between the elder and several people has also become familiar, and it is natural to know that several people came from this world to save their friends. Logically speaking, in this case, he should report to Saraiti. But, what does this kind of matter between big men have to do with him as a little old man? Gary Vulture. The elder sighed. As if thinking of the unbearable past, he whispered to Ichigo. The Ganju is from the Shiba family like you, and his full name is Shiba Ganju. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. People from the Shiba family. Everyone present was stunned. Especially Kurosaki Ichigo. He never imagined that on the first day he entered the Soul Society, he would be able to meet people from his father's family. This is really too coincidental. But something even more coincidental happened at this moment. There was a sound coming from outside the house, and then a figure pushed open the door and walked in. When this person came in, he also asked loudly. I heard someone calling my uncle's name. Who is thinking about my uncle? Heard the voice. Everyone looked at this person. Seeing this, everyone was embarrassed. This person is wearing a turban and sunglasses. In a place like Rukongai, he can already be called a fashionista, but his appearance is a bit unsatisfactory. Only the elders. Watching this person enter the room, he opened his mouth and said. You came just in time, this Shinigami is. But before the elder could finish his words, Griffin first saw Kurosaki Ichigo sitting beside him. His face suddenly became stiff, and he said coldly. Wait uncle, why is there a stinky Shinigami here? Stinky Shinigami. What are you talking about? Ichigo got annoyed immediately when he was pointed at and said stinky Shinigami. Never thought. He confronted this boy all of a sudden. What's more, the matter developed inexplicably to the point of leaving the house, and the two fought on the street. Looking at this scene, the elder sighed, held his teacup and said. Sure enough, I knew that when I saw Shinigami with the character of Ganju, I would definitely not wait for me to finish talking. Griffin. The four people who were still in the house looked at each other in blank dismay. Unexpectedly, the rock eagle they were talking about just a moment ago turned out to be this boy. But before the four of them reacted. But the elder put down his teacup and shouted to the two people on the street. Hey, Ganju, this Ichigo brother, seems to be your relative. Relatives, Garikans. The two people in the fight stopped their movements and looked at each other dumbfounded. I can't think of it anyway. This person who feels uncomfortable at the first meeting is actually a relative Ganju. Saraiti. Noble Street, Kuchiki Family Mansion. Byakuya Kuchiki, as usual, returned home after a day's team work, but he didn't want to. As soon as he entered the gate of the mansion, the guard told him. Patriarch, there are distinguished guests in the house today. Byakuya Kuchiki paused. Then he resumed his forward pace, leaving only one sentence behind him. I see. The voice is flat, but it is unconsciously convincing. This is the 28th generation patriarch of the Kuchiki family, the person who leads the Kuchiki family to continue its glory. Enter the mansion courtyard. A servant will come forward and follow Byakuya automatically. When seeing one of the old servants, Byakuya asked flatly. I heard that there are distinguished guests at home, who will entertain them now. Generally speaking, visits among nobles were made on rest days. Even if there are occasional distinguished guests who come to visit temporarily, the Kuchiki family will send someone to the 6th team to inform him. But today is weird, not to mention that he didn't come to visit on the rest day, and no one from the clan came to inform him. At the same time, this servant that Byakuya Kuchiki looks at. Bowing slightly, he said what he knew. The guests were received by the old patriarch himself in the afternoon, and they are still receiving guests. As for the identity, the worship stickers were sent with the seal of the Shihuan family, but according to the guard's description, the person who came was a young Shinigami. Heard that? Byakuya Kuchiki nodded slightly. Indicate that you already know the information. Then, under the service of the servants, he took a shower, changed into the clothes for the guests, and then walked to the reception room. At the same time, he pondered the identity of the distinguished guest in his mind. Shihuan family. At present, apart from the current head of the family, Shihuan Yushiro, no other names of newcomers have been heard of. So, in addition to Shihuan Shishiro, and who will come to visit, and even ask Grandpa to meet the guests in person. With the speculation in his heart, Byakuya Kuchiki unconsciously walked to the reception room, and there were 2 attendants standing at the door. Master Patriarch. The 2 attendants hurriedly saluted. Then one of the attendants reported to Byakuya the old patriarch's order. Lord Patriarch, the old patriarch has ordered you to enter the reception room directly after you come back, and there is no need to report. I see. Byakuya Kuchiki nodded. Then he passed the 2 of them and walked towards the reception room alone. But the further you go inside, the more you can hear a slightly familiar voice, accompanied by the laughter of my grandfather from time to time. Wow! Byakuya Kuchiki pushed open the door of the waiting room. But the scene in front of him made his pupils shrink suddenly. I saw the man who murdered Rukia was caught by Xing-jun and was sentenced to death 10 days later. Sitting in front of my grandfather. The 2 were talking and laughing while drinking tea. Rukia heard that the movie theater is very big. Later, while I was asleep, she drew a beard and a turtle on my face. Listening to the interesting stories between the 2, Kuchiki Yinling did not have the burden of the former patriarch, and laughed happily. Ha ha ha. Rukia, I didn't expect to be so lively after going to this world. I really trouble you. But the sound just fell. The 2 looked towards the door at the same time. I saw that Byakuya Kuchiki's cold face burst into a majestic reiatsu, pressing towards Natsuki mercilessly. Human beings have the face to come to Kuchiki's house, it's an unforgivable crime. Chapter 58, Purpose. Of course it is to rob prison. Boom. Cold reiatsu presses Natsuki. In an instant, this powerful reiatsu filled the entire reception room. Even the 2 attendants guarding the door of the reception room trembled from this reiatsu. Reception room. And between this moment, facing this crushing cold reiatsu. With a calm demeanor, Natsuki raised his teacup and took a sip, then said with emotion, the tea must be good tea, but unfortunately I don't know how to drink it. The moment the sound fell, an equally huge reiatsu erupted from Natsuki, easily resisting the attacking reiatsu. Do not. Not only that. I saw reiatsu on Natsuki swell again. The faint blue reiatsu beam of light almost turned into substance, not only resisting the attacking reiatsu, but even pressing back in the opposite direction. Interesting, do you think you can beat me? Feeling the reiatsu pressing towards him, Byakuya Kuchiki had a cold expression on his face, and reiatsu broke out again on his body. Instantly, 1 white and 1 blue, 2 strands of reiatsu clashed against each other. This moment is exactly the same as the scene that happened more than 10 days ago in this world, but the location has changed. Presented from Natsuki's home field. Changed to Soul Society, home of Byakuya Kuchiki. But what remains unchanged is that reiatsu, who are competing with each other at this moment, explodes again. Boom. 2 strands of reiatsu collide again. At the same time, Kuchiki Yinling sat quietly aside. Drinking tea and watching the wrestling between the 2, the smile on the corner of the mouth is still the same. Interesting, I don't know how long it has been since Byakuya had such a vivid expression, 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, no, it seems to be more than 50 years, right? Single quote. After Fei Zhen died, Byakuya Kuchiki just shut down the relationship. Like a machine without emotion, neither joy nor anger. However, as an outgoing former patriarch, he couldn't forcibly interfere with Byakuya's choice. This is Byakuya's own test, belonging to the individual named Byakuya Kuchiki. If you fail, you can only sink here and cannot continue to improve, but if you succeed, you will break through your original self and further sublimate your strength. Pity. So many years have passed. He saw no sign of Byakuya breaking through. But I didn't expect that when I met Natsuki boy today, Byakuya's feelings changed so much. No, did the source come from Rukia? Drinking tea, watching a play. Kuchiki Yinling saw her grandson's true thoughts. But thinking that including myself, even Rukia didn't see everything clearly, I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. It's you who have been hiding for so long, Byakuya. Single quote. But, listen to the creaking of the room. But he couldn't let the two of them continue to mess around. Byakuya, Natsuki is a guest of Kuchiki's house. Kuchiki's silver bell rang out suddenly. Byakuya froze and turned to look. But seeing Kuchiki Yinling looking at him seriously, this appearance reminded him of his childhood memories. When teaching noble etiquette, Grandpa kept looking at him with this expression. Moment. He understands the meaning of Kuchiki Yinling. Natsuki is now a guest. And the Kuchiki family, as the #1 noble of the Soul Society, how could they do things that hurt the guests? Crunch. Byakuya Kuchiki clenched his hands. Want to refuse, but know that stopping is the best solution. Otherwise, if the matter gets out, it will have a very bad impact on the Kuchiki family. I see. After all, family interests prevailed. Byakuya Kuchiki slowly retracted her own reiatsu, but her expression was even colder, and she looked at Natsuki without saying a word. Oops. Natsuki also retracted reiatsu, and quipped. Could it be that this is still the custom of Kuchiki's family? The old man came here once in the afternoon, and you come here again now. Heard that. Byakuya Kuchiki glanced at Kuchiki Silver Bell. But seeing Kuchiki Yinling put down the teacup in her hand, nodded her head invisibly, expressing that it is indeed so. Grandpa has tried it. Single quote. In Byakuya Kuchiki's mind, this idea flashed subconsciously. Maybe that's why the two sat together chatting and drinking tea, and Natsuki passed the temptation of Kuchiki's silver bell. Thoughts flashed through my mind. Byakuya Kuchiki did not forget to question Natsuki. Human, how did you come to Soul Society? How did you come to Soul Society? As long as you want to come, there is always a way, isn't it? Natsuki didn't answer directly. Instead, Byakuya Kuchiki's eyes flickered slightly. But just as he was about to ask, what is your purpose for coming to Soul Society? Natsuki spoke first. What is the purpose of coming to Soul Society? What you want to ask should be this sentence. Byakuya Kuchiki frowned, he was not used to such a direct conversation. However, Natsuki's words are not over yet. I saw him picking up the teacup on the table again, putting it into his mouth calmly, and then said with a smile. The purpose of coming to Soul Society. It's very simple, of course I'm here to rob the prison. The moment the sound fell, Byakuya Kuchiki's reiatsu burst out again. Chapter 59, Yangmu, the test of the Kuchiki family. Prison robbery. Byakuya Kuchiki reiatsu broke out again. Speaking of robbing the prison in front of his face, do you really think he won't make a move? Bold. What do you think my Kuchiki's family is? You blatantly said the words of jailbreak. However, Natsuki doesn't love Byakuya at all. He knows that Byakuya looks aloof, but actually he is cold on the outside and hot on the inside, and he cares about Rukia no less than himself. So still with a smile on his face, he even picked up the teacup and took another sip in front of him. More importantly, Kuchiki Silver Bell is also the same action. Quote. Heart tired. Byakuya Kuchiki has never felt so. He is obviously in his own home, but he has no way to face this human being. No, when I faced that cat demon 100 years ago, it seemed that I had this unreasonable feeling. Suddenly, thinking of the greeting post with the seal of Shihuan's family. Byakuya Kuchiki knew it, and had a judgment on how Natsuki came to Soul Society. Gradually, outburst reiatsu retakes. You never thought that I would report your matter to Seraiti. Byakuya Kuchiki's face was still as cold as before. No, even because of successive setbacks, his voice became cold. But Natsuki was not affected in the slightest. Instead, he put down the teacup in his hand, looked over with a half smile, and asked. Then think about it, when Rukia is about to be sentenced to death, the Kuchiki family was suddenly exposed to receive me as a guest, what do the outside world think? Crunch. Byakuya Kuchiki's hands are clenched. But this time there was no reiatsu outburst, just staring at Natsuki as if he wanted to cut him into pieces. It's too late. Natsuki ignored Byakuya's gaze and said coldly. I entered Kuchiki's house at noon, and it's been 3 hours since then. In the past 3 hours, the 2 patriarchs of your Kuchiki family have personally received me. If you say you don't know about my situation, no one will believe you, right? You are bold. Byakuya Kuchiki looked even colder. Thank you for your compliment, brother-in-law. Natsuki laughed. What's the point of seeing his conspiracy? Quote. Byakuya Kuchiki stared at Natsuki. Did he talk too well to Natsuki, making him think he was complimenting him? But at this time, Natsuki was about to leave. Okay. It's getting late, so I won't continue chatting. After drinking the last sip of tea in the teacup, Natsuki stood up slowly and nodded to Kuchiki Yinling. Someone will take you out later. Kuchiki Yinling also put down the teacup, got up and said to Natsuki. As for Byakuya, although he wanted to ask questions, Kuchiki Yinling's hidden eyes made him suppress his curiosity. After all, compared to myself, Kuchiki Yinling talked with Natsuki for 3 hours and undoubtedly knew more. Soon, Natsuki walked out of Kuchiki's house under the leadership of the servant. Afterwards, he rushed from the secret passage of Kuchiki's house all the way to the direction of West Rukongai, and the figure quickly disappeared into the night. Waiting room. There are still 2 people sitting. But this time it was replaced by Yinling and Byakuya's grandfather and grandson. Byakuya Kuchiki's expression returned to the usual calm, without the slightest coldness when facing Natsuki. Grandfather. What is the purpose of his visit? Trying to win us over to break into prison together. I think he should know it's impossible. Sitting opposite my grandfather. Byakuya Kuchiki frowned slightly, guessing the purpose of Natsuki's visit. But I don't want to. Kuchiki Yinling's next words made him puzzled for a while. It's not true. Natsuki didn't say a word about asking for the Kuchiki family's help. During these 3 hours, he just chatted with me about Rukia's life in this world. Kuchiki Yinling narrowed his eyes slightly, lost in memory. For 3 hours, the 2 were really just chatting. But not asking the Kuchiki family to help, which means Natsuki is going to save Rukia with his own power. Yinling can think of this. Naturally, Byakuya Kuchiki could also figure it out, with a hint of surprise on his face. If you want to save Rukia with your own strength, what is there to rely on? I don't know. Kuchiki Yinling shook his head. It makes him wonder what Natsuki's intentions are, but does it matter? Since the Kuchiki family was not asked to help, they just quietly watched Natsuki's next move. Just right. The woman of the Kuchiki family. It's not just a random person who comes to the door and waits to take it away. Strength, power, and resourcefulness must always be included. After all, the women of the Kuchiki family can't bear to be wronged. Just let him see. You Natsuki, are you qualified to take away the woman from the Kuchiki family? Of course, it doesn't matter if you fail, but Kuchiki Yinling will tell Natsuki that there is a price for playing old people. In fact, Natsuki's purpose in coming to Kuchiki's house is simple. It's just a normal visit to the old man's house, or to pay homage to the mountain gate. Never thought. Yoruichi's thank you post puts everything on the table. In this way, even if the Kuchiki family wants to ignore Natsuki, they can't do it, they can only jump into the pit helplessly. Certainly. They can also defy suspicion and report to Seraiti. But what good does this do for the Kuchiki family? Rukia has already been sentenced to death, and there is no possibility of changing the report, it will only arouse suspicion for no reason. Not to mention, Rukia Kuchiki was thus sentenced to death. Not everyone is as blind as Byakuya Kuchiki. You know, no matter how you say it, Rukia is still surnamed Kuchiki now, and this is a death sentence, which is undoubtedly a slap in the face of the Kuchiki family. If Natsuki can save Rukia, not much else to say, at least the people of the Kuchiki family, I am afraid that they will be full of favors in an instant. West Rukongai. Looking at the strange building in front of me. Natsuki sneezed suddenly, as if someone was thinking about him. But soon Natsuki's attention was drawn away again, and a black cat came out of this strange building, stretched out its paw and joked. Come back so soon. I thought you were going to be the son-in-law at Byakuya's tonight. Chapter 60, The Flower Crane Cannon Launches, a ball of light falling from the sky. Yoruichi. Your greeting post scares me. Natsuki complained, but there was no trace of fear on his face. As for the son-in-law, Rukia is not at Kuchiki's house, she is still in prison. While speaking, the breath became heavy. Yoruichi noticed the change in Natsuki. But what does it have to do with her? Anyway, she is not in charge of the second team now, let that girl Sui Feng have a headache. Well, you should thank me more. If you don't have my greeting post, you can only go over the wall like I used to. It's the first time you meet your parents, don't be too embarrassed. Hey, keep up. Yoruichi wagged his tail. Turn around and walk towards the strange house behind you. Although it's true to say that. Natsuki scratched his head helplessly, and followed Yoruichi's footsteps. This visit is indeed very official. But if he hadn't reacted quickly and came up with a conspiracy on the spot, he might not be able to walk out of Kuchiki's house safely this time. Especially the old fox of Kuchiki Yinling. Although it only talked about Rukia's life in this world, the temptation to him never stopped. But, the moment you enter the house, suddenly, a smile appeared on Natsuki's lips. Although the old fox is a bit difficult to deal with, the purpose of the visit has finally been achieved. Rescue Rukia. It is not difficult for Natsuki who has seen the plot. But for the Kuchiki clan who don't know anything, it's almost a dead end. The so-called door-to-door visit means that Natsuki intends to use this information gap to solve the problem between himself and Rukia in one go. It's just the result. Natsuki is currently satisfied and has met his expectations. After all, in the conversation with Kuchiki Yinling, the other party almost said, as long as you can save Rukia, I agree with you to be together. Certainly. This so-called rescue. It's not the jailbreak that Natsuki joked about earlier. But to restore Rukia's innocence through above-board means, and for the last time without affecting the reputation of the Kuchiki clan. Shiba House. The time of departure varies. And after meeting Griffin, they choose to go to Shiba's house together. So when the group arrived at Shiba's house, it was just in time for dinner. As for Shiba Empty Crane, after learning of Ichigo's identity, he became more enthusiastic immediately. Especially looking at the face similar to that of my eldest brother, I feel nostalgic. Shiba Kong simply waved his hand and ordered Jinyan and Yinyan to entertain the guests well. This allowed a group of people who arrived at Soul Society to enjoy a sumptuous welcome dinner on the first night. The timing of Natsuki's return is very coincidental. Just after Ichigo and Shiba Kuzuru met each other, when the welcome banquet began, they took advantage of the opportunity to have a sumptuous dinner. The next day, at dawn, everyone started practicing. Seraiti is surrounded by murderous stones, and the murderous stones produce a special wave, which can form a soul shield to cover the entire Seraiti. It can be regarded as a layer of protection against Seraiti. And if everyone wants to enter Seraiti, there is only one way to enter from the air. But to enter Seraiti from the air, a hard code is needed to break through the occult membrane over Seraiti. Exactly. Shiba Kong has developed related technologies. Special hardened spirit wall generating device. Inject spiritual power into the special spirit bead core to form a protective shield. At that time, launch it to Seraiti from the empty crane cannon, and you can successfully break through the soul shield and enter Seraiti. To this end, everyone is hurrying to practice. This time with the bonus of family affection, Shiba Kong personally taught everyone, and finally everyone successfully mastered it in the afternoon. But in order to have the best condition, everyone rested until dark and recovered their physical and spiritual strength before they were ready to set off. However, just when preparing to enter the Huahei cannon, Shiba Kongzuru, who has always been indifferent to Natsuki, suddenly whispered when Natsuki passed by him. "Hey, kid, come on." Natsuki paused and replied without turning his head, "Of course." Huahei cannon. Everyone formed a circle and stretched out their hands to press the Lingju core. Meanwhile, on the console, Shiba Kong pulled out the short sword from his waist, threw a saber flower and inserted it on the launch pad, and the chant sounded. The other side, copper-colored desire wants 36 degrees of control. The moment the voice sounded, Yoruichi quickly reminded everyone. It started, everyone inject spiritual power into the core of the Lingju. The voice fell. Everyone follow Yoruichi's words. Inject your own spiritual power into the core of the spirit bead, and immediately, a circular shield surrounds everyone. Launch pad. Shiba Kong is still chanting the inscription. 72 pairs of phantoms, 13 pairs of horn flutes, and the right hand of the ape grasping the stars. When the sound falls, she yanked off the turban on her head and wrapped it around her arms. Flames instantly burned from the left arm, exuding bursts of power, and then, the left fist smashed hard towards the launch pad. The flame on the arm ignited the twine. Suddenly, the flames surrounded the entire fort in a ring shape. Looking at everything in front of me, Shiba Konghe's chanting continued, and he chanted the final inscription loudly. Embracing the 25 rounds of the sun, the cradle of sand is bleeding. The voice fell. The flames that surrounded the fort. It reconverged on the left arm of Shiba Kong, but then flowed towards the fort along the lead wire in the center of the console. The number 2 flower crane shooting technique, the bloom of Juji. The voice fell. Suddenly, the fort made a violent roar. Boom! Natsuki and the others inside the gun barrel. Suddenly, I felt my line of sight change rapidly, and I quickly flew into the air. The Huahei cannon was successfully launched. At this time, the night has just fallen. The fireworks when the shells are fired are particularly bright in the dark night. It's like a ray of light in the dark night, guiding the direction for everyone to move forward. High in the sky, the launch was successful. Arasawa Tatsuki looked at the changing scenery and felt emotional. It's easy to send us to this height. The power of the crane cannon is really impressive. Natsuki looked at the changing height and praised. But at the moment, Shiba Ganju suddenly laughed and said, HMPH. Next is the main event. Hearing this, everyone looked over in puzzlement, but at this moment, the shell stopped rising. What? With the screams of the crowd, the shell suddenly made a 90-degree turn and rushed towards Saraiti. At this moment, the Soul Society, who hadn't encountered any foreign enemies for many years, suddenly fell from the sky with a fiery ball of light, illuminating the entire night sky. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.